Hey nerdy knitters, Tanya here. In this video we're looking at the right and left lifted increases on a purl row. So those times you might want to add an increase on the wrong side of the work, or if you're working with a textured fabric or with pearls, this is how you could add those increases. And if you want to jump to any point in the video, use the timestamp links in the video description box down below. Let's look at how to work the right and left lifted increases on a purl row. I have a little demonstration loop here. This would be the stitch on our needle. Remember, it sits on the needle just like this. And the lifted increase is worked in the stitch below the stitch on the needle, this stitch right here. And we're on the purl side, so we've got the purl head there and the legs are here. And to work the right and left lifted increases, we use the legs of the stitch. The right lifted increase uses the right leg of the stitch. The left lifted increase uses the left leg of the stitch. There's some confusion about the name for this stitch. Most people refer to it by the leg that's used to work the stitch. But because we're working on a purl row, when we flip our work over and look at it on the right, sometimes we want our stitches to slant in the direction of the increase. And I've got left leaning stitches going this way. So when I work on the purl row, I actually work the right leaning increase to get that left slant on right there. You see this? That's where that stitch slants off to the left. So I've worked the right leaning purl increase to get it to look like that. I've used the right leg of the stitch to go that way. And on this side, I want the fabric to move off to the right. And you can see right here where I worked that increase, that leg slants off to the right. But on this side, I had to work into the left leg of the stitch to get that slant. So it can be a bit confusing. It depends on how you want to refer to it. If your fabric is reverse stockinette, then you could refer to it as the right lifted purl increase and the left, depending on the leg you're using. But if you're working it on a purl row for a stockinette fabric and the stockinette is facing, then you'll want to reverse those so they can follow the slant. It's totally up to you. You can try both and see what you like. But the whole point of the lifted increase is it's worked in the stitch below the stitch on the needle into the right or in the left leg. And in this case, we can't really get to the legs, but we can get to the head of that stitch. So let's work the increase. I'm working the increase in the center of the swatch, just as if I were working a top-down raglan and I want my increases to be added for the sleeves. But of course, I've just finished the stockinette side. I'm on the purl side. All right, I want the increase to be worked in this stitch. There's the stitch on my needle, and there is the head of the stitch that's sitting below. So all I need to do, I can insert this way and pop it right up onto my needle, just like that. Let me show you that again. There's the head of the stitch. Just insert my needle right underneath the head from bottom to top and pop it right up on my needle. But what that does is it puts the leading leg of the stitch in the back. Do you see that? A normal stitch is seated like this. The left leg is in the back, the right leg is in the front. But when you pick up this stitch like that, right there, see that left leg is in the front and the right leg is in the back. So to fix that stitch mount, if I were to purl right into the front, it would twist that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to purl through the back loop. So I find that right leaning leg, it's in the back, and I insert. I have to sort of turn and insert that way. See what I'm doing? Coming behind and inserting. My yarn's in the front because it's a purl, and I'm going to purl that stitch and drop it off my needle. And that is a purl right lifted increase. Here, let me demonstrate that one more time. I'm at the point where I want my increase, and I know it has to go in this stitch here, but instead of inserting like this to lift it onto the needle, I'm going to insert it like I'm going to purl. So from top to bottom, right down into the head of that stitch. Wrap my yarn, pull it through, pull my purl stitch through, and there is your lifted increase on a purl row. The lazy way. I want to work a left lifted increase on this side, but like we showed here, that left leg is on this side of the needle. There's the stitch I want the increase to be in. But I have to purl this stitch first, and that moves it down here. There's the stitch, my new stitch, the stitch I've just worked. This is where I want to work the increase. So I'm just going to, just like I did for the right, insert my needle into the head of that stitch and bring it right up. And now if you look at it, it's seated like a normal stitch. So I can purl it just like a normal stitch, just like that. And that is all there is to working the right and left lifted increases on a purl row. If you want to learn how to work the right and left lifted increases on stockinette or a knit, then check out the video I've linked above. And don't forget to click the subscribe button to get a little nerdy with your knitting.